In the previous video, Secretary Kim found her CV among several others in the vice president's house and asked him if he had hired her for a specific reason, or if he had met her before. However, the man denied this and said it was simply because she was Miso. I'm Nina, and in today's recap we'll be watching what's wrong with Secretary Kim. Secretary Kim always found it strange when she started at the company and her superior told her to apply for the job. At first she thought she wouldn't be selected and was surprised when she found out that she was. This doubt has always been in the back of her mind, the reason she was chosen, and in the midst of a situation where she still thinks Young Jun is the little boy she protected when she was caught, despite being told otherwise, Miso becomes even more confused. Should she believe in reason or her intuition? Later, when she is saying goodbye, the vice president asks her if the conversation she had with her brother was as good and enlightening as she had hoped. Secretary Kim says yes, and when Young Jong brings up the subject of them saying that all this happened because he left Sung Yun behind, even though he doesn't remember anything, Miso replies that it's okay, they were children, and that if he doesn't remember, it's for the best. The woman confessed that she still hasn't come to terms with the fact that Sung Yun was that little boy, and it's a bit strange for her. Secretary Kim left and we see that Young Jun didn't actually tell her the truth, since when we go back in time, it was the man who asked her superior to send her to apply for a secretary position, and when he introduced himself to the woman the first time, he already knew who she was. The next day, Miso goes to talk to President Park about what she discovered, that it wasn't the vice president who was caught as a child, but his older brother. The man comments that Secretary Kim seems to be disappointed by this information, but she tries to explain to him that it's nothing like that and that she would like the matter to remain between the two of them. In the course of the morning, Miso received a call inviting her to lunch, and before accepting, she warned the vice president about it, so that he wouldn't wait for her to eat, and said that GA would accompany him to the meeting, so that she could get used to the demand. At lunch, Sung Yun asked her what she wanted to do when she met him, and Secretary Kim explained that she didn't have anything in mind, she just wanted to find him, she didn't intend to date and marry him, as the man is thinking. Despite this, the little boy who got stuck with her is still her first love, but after many years, it doesn't mean that they're going to get involved. As the meeting is winding down, the two bump into the vice president outside the establishment. The man asks to speak to his brother alone, so Miso leaves. And their conversation is nothing but teasing about who will get the woman in the end. Meanwhile, in the car, Young Jun learns that later Secretary Kim will meet up with his older brother again, and the two of them will go to the approximate location of the kidnapping. The man asks the woman not to go, as there are things that could hurt her when she remembers, but she insists that she wants to find out certain things, regardless of what it will do to her. And we see that GA still has to deal with GWI Nam. The man is making sure that she doesn't open her mouth about his financial situation, and so he's going to a workshop where the head office staff are going, which isn't nice, as the man makes her tense with all this observation. Returning to Miso, she meets up with Sung Yun after work, and the man picks her up in his vehicle. The vice president ended up canceling his appointments and inviting President Park to accompany him and listen to him vent. On the way there, we see that his friend is great at protecting his feelings, because when he sees Sung Yun talking to Secretary Kim outside the car, he closes Young Jun's eyes so that he doesn't see and get angry. Meanwhile, when they are in the area similar to the one where the crime took place, Miso talks about the few things she remembers, like when the little boy took her hand when they ran away and led her to her house. Secretary Kim called this little boy Appa, which is the way they refer in Korea to an older brother, or an older friend who is very close, and in romantic relationships, it can be used to refer to your boyfriend. Sung Yun asks her to start calling him that, so that she can help him remember more about those terrible days. In the next scene we see the president with Yoo-sik. The man tells him that he needs to work up the courage and declare himself to Miso so that he doesn't lose her to his older brother, and the two of them stop flirting. President Park also reveals that he knew Young Jun was using the excuse that he was his cousin to ask for advice. Returning to Miso, she hands Sung Yun a diary she made for the little boy when she was little, telling him about her day-to-day life and some memories of what happened when they were caught. The man says some things that may sound a little strange, like being grateful to Young-jun for abandoning him and him being kidnapped because of it, because in the end he met the woman. Her feeling about it doesn't seem to be that. In my opinion as a viewer, he's romanticizing a trauma too much, so much so that his secretary Kim is a little surprised to hear these words. But no more so than Young-jun when Sung-yeon takes her to meet the vice president, and as they say goodbye, she uses the word appa. Young-jun and Miso start a conversation in an establishment, which sounds a bit like an argument. The man tells her that she should bury the memories she's struggling to remember, so that she doesn't live in the past. And he says that this upsets the man she's flirting with, in this case him. Young-jun left his secretary Kim speechless, and when he went to say goodbye to her, he said that before he had proposed that the woman marry him, because he didn't want her to quit, but now the man really likes her and wants to build something. However, Miso says she doesn't think now is the best time to start a relationship and dismisses him. The next day, the office group gets together to go in a vehicle to the workshop. Nam was the one who lost out on this trip, as Sara tried to please him by feeding him and ended up spilling sauce on the only suit the man has. And Miso ended up discovering with her colleagues that inviting someone to eat ramen is a way of indirectly letting them know that you want to seduce them, so Secretary Kim starts to feel ashamed, remembering the time she called the vice president to eat the dish. Later, the group decides they're going to have fun, and Miso tells them that they should do just that, because the program was just something to deliver to the company. In fact, they're there to have fun. However, when they leave the house, they find Young-jun on the premises, which comes as a surprise to everyone, including Secretary Kim, and unfortunately now everyone will have to work, following what was in the program. At one point, the vice president reveals to Miso that the real reason he's there is so that at the end of the workshop the two of them can stop flirting and become boyfriend and girlfriend. In the next scene, we see that the group ends up doing a tape hunt made up of couples. Of course the vice president got Secretary Kim and then they split up, the winner getting a tablet that Young-jun added to the prize and a gift card. Nam is the one who is most determined to win, not that he needs the device that much, but selling it guarantees him a good amount of money that he wasn't expecting, but his double GA doesn't understand how important it is to him. Meanwhile, Miso received a call from Sung-yeon while she was with the vice president, so Young-jun decided to pick up the cell phone and reply that Secretary Kim is busy at the moment. The vice president has decided that he will deal with what is to come with his beloved's curiosity about the past and that he will get over it so that the two of them can be together as a couple. So the first thing the woman wants to know is why he pushed her away when they were about to kiss, and the man is honest. He says that when he closes his eyes, from time to time Young-jun sees the ghost of a woman wanting to grab him, and that scares him. However, as his secretary Kim was starting to get worried and asked if there had been any trauma in his life, the vice president made a joke about seeing a ghost at that moment to lighten the mood. As soon as the two of them get back to the house, everyone in the group is already at the table having dinner, and when they go to make more meat for them, the food has run out, so all that's left to eat is ramen, and although Miso is very much in the mood for a barbecue, he has to make do with the noodles. The next day, Young-jun leaves the workshop to close with a big brand in the company, and instead of taking his secretary Kim with him, he tells her to enjoy the place with the rest of the group and rest. However, if she wants to go to his house later, there will be a present waiting for her, and Miso confirms that she will go. In the next scene we see that the man is planning to have a barbecue in his garden to satisfy his lover's cravings and invites President Park to join him at the market, but at the end of the shopping, Young-jun dismisses his friend, who thought he was going to take part in the barbecue, and gets a bit upset about it. Later, Miso arrives at the vice president's house and loves the surprise, but they end up having to eat pizza in the end, as it was Young-jun's first time looking after meat and he ended up letting them all burn. At one point, the man goes to wipe his beloved's face, and when they get close, it looks like a kiss is about to happen. But unfortunately, when he closes his eyes, Young-jun remembers that woman and can't go any further. The situation becomes increasingly complicated when President Park shows up and catches them in that situation. Embarrassed, Secretary Kim says goodbye and rushes off. The next day, Miso ends up taking the elevator with Yusik and she tries to explain to him that nothing is going on between her and the vice president. Changing the subject, the woman asks if President Park has noticed that Young-jun has a scar on one of his ankles, and Yusik replies that the man actually has one on both of them, because when they were younger and getting ready in the locker room, he noticed it. President Park comments that the way they are, it's like he's been tied up or something, and explains that when you tighten them too much with a rope or something, there's a low concentration of blood there which can leave marks in the future. The man even thought, when his secretary Kim commented on the kidnapping, that Young-jun might have been one of the children, but as soon as the woman told him about his older brother, Yusik dismissed the possibility. We cut to a scene where we see Sara paying for a little gaffe at the office. President Park's secretary has brought some macarons to the main office, and as the woman wasn't there, she left 3 on her desk. As soon as Sara arrives, she asks her colleagues who left her that treat, and one of them says that it was someone who really likes her. The woman immediately guesses that it's the vice president's driver and secretary, Mr. Young, so she sends him a message thanking him and saying that she'll appreciate them. A little time goes by and Sara finds out that she was Yusik's secretary, so she's ashamed of what she sent to the man. GA also has to deal with something. She and GWI Nam won the ribbon race, so the woman goes to him to hand over the prizes, and the man is unpleasant as usual, saying that she's being unfair to win one, because he was the one who found 2 of the 3 ribbons, so he deserved more. GWI Nam also says that when she orders food at home, to take half of it back to him, so it won't be a waste. In the next scene, Sung-yeon tells his mother about finding out that Miso was with him during his childhood trauma, and the woman is surprised, because when they were called to the police station, the boy was alone. So Madam Choi decided to call her secretary Kim and ask her to come to her house. There, the woman asks Miso to tell her in detail what she remembers, and Secretary Kim tells her a little about the place and how a boy who was there before her, a little older than her, comforted her when she was afraid. Madam Choi asks if he didn't feel cold in that place, because the boy, who is now a man, is very sensitive to the cold. The woman tells her that her son was wearing a cardigan made especially for the boy by his designer friend, and that he was the only one to have received something like this, apart from the designer's own children. Miso asks her how Young-jun came to lose his childhood memories and discovers that this happened during the period when the crime took place. The boy was drinking coffee one day and simply fainted. As soon as he woke up, he said he couldn't remember anything else. Then Sung-yeon appears and says that he will accompany her to the exit, only to change first, and the woman notices that there are no scars on his ankles like there were on his brother's. Outside, Sung-yeon says that he can't wait for winter to arrive, as he loves the cold, and this is another thing that Secretary Kim finds strange, as his mother has just said that her son, who was caught, was sensitive to the cold. Miso's mind is getting more and more confused and pointing out that Young-jun was the child with her in that horrible place, but the man denied it every time she asked. Speaking of the vice president, the two ran into each other at his parents' house, and the man went to pick her up, but his secretary Kim had already left. Young-jun ended up finding the diary she had given to his older brother, and with that, some memories started to come back to him. Later, the vice president went to Miso's house. He wanted to see her and also deliver a box full of caramel candies, to make up for the fact that earlier the man had eaten her last one. The next day, the inauguration of Young-jun's company's arts center and the lecture in which his brother will reveal himself as the writer Morpheus arrive. While the lecture is taking place, Miso notices the vice president enter the auditorium, and when she gets up to meet him, Sung-yeon, who was being interviewed, says that he has recently found his true love again and that he will dedicate himself to protecting her, just as he did when he was little and they went through a difficult time together. After receiving this declaration of love, Miso goes after the vice president, who left the premises after hearing his older brother's words. Secretary Kim tells Young-jun that the things Sung-yeon said and when he saw the man holding her hand earlier were all a misunderstanding, and she wants to make things clear so that the vice president doesn't misunderstand and end up walking away. Then Miso reveals that she likes him, so the man pulls her into a hug and then is about to give her a kiss, when he remembers that woman again, but this time Secretary Kim isn't going home in the mood and she approaches him to give him a kiss, thus breaking the trauma of Young Jun, who won't stop kissing his girlfriend. Afterwards, Young Jun takes Miso home and proposes to her again, but now he adds that she should accept as soon as possible. The next day, something happened that had never happened before. The vice president was so relaxed that things were working out between him and his secretary Kim, that he ended up falling asleep in a meeting. In taking advantage of this, President Park called her in to see something funny. Despite being asleep, the man answers everything that is asked anyway. Over the course of the day, Young Jun realizes that he doesn't feel comfortable dating Miso now, that she does the same things as before, such as pouring his water, preparing his snacks and so on, so he asks her not to become a bad boyfriend, that she doesn't do anything other than her real work duties as a secretary. Today wasn't a good day for our dear President Park, as he was on his way to a meeting when he saw his ex-wife on the street smiling with another man, and this shook Yu-sik, who still has feelings for her. Near the end of the workday, Miso asks the vice president not to give her any more special treatment, because being in front of him, always making him comfortable with everything, was her job for 9 years, and asking him to stop now doesn't make the woman feel good. The conversation between them ends up leaving their relationship a little shaken. It was the first couple's quarrel between the two. Meanwhile, Ji ended up receiving some tomatoes as a gift from her neighbor Gwi Nam, as an apology for the man having taken her fan earlier, thinking that someone had thrown it away. So the woman decided to be a good neighbor too and sent him half of the food she had ordered to eat, but as soon as she handed it over to Gwi Nam, she regretted it, because right away the man complained about the flavors she had ordered and told her his preferences for next time. Returning to our beautiful couple, in the evening the vice president goes to Miso's house, with food from the restaurant she's used to going to with her sisters, and Secretary Kim thanks him for coming to her home. The two end up making up. However, a problem arises when Miso's sisters show up and the woman ends up hiding her boyfriend in the closet so that they don't see him. Unfortunately, this is how the man ended up hearing the bad things his girlfriend said about him while they weren't yet in a relationship, because Secretary Kim said that the vice president was there, which is why there were 2 plates on the table, so the two of them opened the list of things the man has wrong with him, and inside the cupboard Young Jun is squirming listening to everything. Despite everything he's heard, when the vice president is released from the closet, he says that he can't get angry with his girlfriend because she's so beautiful. The next day, Secretary Kim is doing her job, when she receives a message that makes her nervous. Sung-yeon goes to meet her later, so that they can talk and he can apologize for having made a statement without the woman's openness. Before answering him, Miso shows the message to her boyfriend, who says that she should meet him and that he trusts her, so Secretary Kim says that she'll put an end to this situation with Sung-yeon anyway. We then see the two of them meeting. The man doesn't take too kindly to Miso putting an end to their relationship, even more so after finding out that it has to do with Young Jun, so Sung-yeon starts to get worked up. However, the vice president suddenly appears on the scene, having predicted that his brother would act like this, and tells him not to chase after Secretary Kim or bother her anymore. The man says that if he sees him talking nonsense in front of the woman one more time, he won't let it go, even if she is one of his family. In the next scene we see that Young Jun has taken his lover for a drive, so that they can cool off, and the man ends up taking a piece of clothing from the car so that she can warm up. Miso ends up commenting that the color is very beautiful, so the vice president decides to tell her that since he was a little boy, he has received pieces made especially for him from a designer friend of his mother. At this point, Secretary Kim adds one more thing to her list of why she believes the man is the boy from her childhood. The two of them get into the car for a while so that Young Jun can rest. Since he was yawning and his thoughts were racing, Miso decides to test something and calls him by the name she used to call the little boy, since she recently remembered it in one of her dreams, and it's Song Hyan Appa. As soon as Secretary Kim says it, the man answers the call and she gets the confirmation she was hoping for. Soon Miso is bombarding Young Jun with questions, whether his name has been changed, why he answered her call, but he just says that he heard her voice and answered, as usual. What did you think of these episodes? I hope you enjoyed this summary. Leave your suggestions in the comments and subscribe. If you liked the video, like it and share it to help me. Until next time.